You can expect an intensity sort of bordering on obsessiveness to enter your love relationships this week because of the gathering together of Scorpio planets on the way to the Scorpio new moon this Sunday, October 27th. There's always a haunting refrain when it comes to Scorpio, where we now have the goddess of love as well as messenger Mercury. And in fact, of course, Scorpio's holiday is Halloween. And the haunting of love letters, I think, was beautifully illustrated for me when the good news this week, showed me the archetypal energy and how it is manifesting. It's the story of Elaine and Elias and their love letters that they wrote to each other during World War II. They surfaced in a Smoky Mountain tourist gift shop where two wonderful women discovered them and bought each one of the letters for $4 apiece and began searching for what happened to this teenage love story once the World War was over. So they did a lot of detective sleuthing work, and they found that, in fact, that sweet couple did get married and actually went on to have 4 children together. And the reason it made the Apple Good News story is because they took the extra steps to locate the relatives who were still living of this couple and share the letters with them. It touched so many hearts. And you can expect some version of this very powerful love letter, love messages, to enter your own personal life as well. And your own power of discovery, your own power of doing your own private eye detective work will be building throughout this week of October 21st to the 27th, 2019. Because we already have messenger Mercury in Scorpio side by side with Venus, the goddess of love, also in Scorpio. And this Wednesday, the sun leaves Libra and goes into Scorpio. As above, so below. And this archetypal energy of the Scorpio quintessential sleuth also showed up in my life. I'll give you a little personal examples so that you can compare notes. I have a long ago sweetheart who recently sent me some pictures, some photographs from back in the 1960s, very long time ago, of the two of us. And the reason these had turned up quite remarkably was only because there had been a death of an elderly aunt in his family. And going through her things, they found all these old photographs. A lot of years and events have passed between us from then to now. Some events quite traumatic that seemed to have broken the relationship. But fortunately, we have broken through that old perception of fault finding, and we were able to look at the old photos with the delight of that idealistic young love. We could smile and enjoy the love that was there, including the way our friendship matured over these years. Meaning, that Scorpio's energy is haunting, and it is bringing up things from the graveyard, the underground, because, Scorpio's ruled by Pluto. But nevertheless, Scorpio is also a high spiritual energy, a shamanic energy, and the message that Scorpio wants to bring us right now is that by releasing the old of the past through the eyes of the love finder and not the fault finder, we can release it in forgiveness and simply enjoy all the love that has been given and received in our lives since time began, really. And right now, watch how love will itself take center stage archetypally in your own personal life. Because when we get to Sunday, Scorpio new moon, we will have the sun in Scorpio, the moon in Scorpio, Mercury and Venus also in Scorpio. And if you can contain this haunting energy, that is, hold it with love or at least with curiosity, then you have the cauldron for alchemy, where the pain or the trauma we think we have experienced in the past will literally be transmuted into the golden treasure of memories of love. And wouldn't that be the greatest haunting of all times, where your ghosts are change agents of forgiveness and release? So let's look now at a little blow by blow of the days this week, because last week we were in between lunar aspects, and this week then we have two. So we start the week on that third quarter crisis turning point with the moon in Cancer, a late degree of Cancer. This is very important because when we get to that peak of the January 500-year cycle, it's going to be previewed, or I guess the stage will be set, by an eclipse in the sign of Cancer. So every time, once a month, the moon will be in the sign of Cancer. And those are opportunities, like this Monday is, for noticing how that energy, that large transit, is going to manifest particularly in your own life, because the moon is the trigger. She is our up close and constant dance partner. And so when she triggers something, you will feel it strongly in your own experience, your own life experience. So Monday, we get heavenly help because that Venus in watery Scorpio is going to make an exact harmony with Neptune, the visionary planet, in the sign of Pisces, because we are likely to find ourselves in a daydream or two. We might as well use our intentions to daydream about love, to actively pull our minds out of problems, out of trying to find meaning in the chaos of the world right now, and instead look for the light beyond. It is always there. Then Monday evening, the moon moves into fiery Leo, and she's going to zap us with a little surprise wake-up call about something, probably something that we've been daydreaming about that very time. Tuesday, the 22nd of October, the moon is still in Leo, and we have a mixed bag. Some lucky event happens, as well as the challenge in our relationships. So on Wednesday, as I mentioned before, the sun moves into Scorpio, and that afternoon the moon moves into Virgo. So that's earth and water, and earth holds water. They're one of the most compatible combinations, the other being the combination of fire and air. So we are in with a sun in Scorpio and the Virgo moon making a wonderful music with the god of lightning. So we're going to feel a refreshing break from all the intensity of Scorpio, and we're going to get into making sense out of some of the details of our daydreams. And then the moon is still in Virgo for Thursday, which is really a lovely day. Some discoveries, but very, very pleasant. You have a good opportunity to put your emotional house in order. And then Friday, by the afternoon, the moon sails into the air sign of lovely Libra, just in time for Venus's day, Friday. And of course, Libra is ruled by Venus. So this promises literally some beauty in your relationships, even though you are going to be taking a little deeper dive. And it could happen that by Saturday, or especially on Saturday, October 26th, that moon in Libra is maybe intellectualized to many of our feelings, and they sort of come around and bite us when the moon makes a very tense square with the Saturn and Pluto, those two big guys, the sheriff and the powerful agent of change, both together bringing us under Libra the opportunity to sort of weigh those scales of justice and see where we stand with being fair, with being truthful, no lying in our own lives, so that we are staying in pace with the demands of that new cycle. The demands being transparency, fairness, and integrity, and especially the right use of power. So the right use of your personal power in your relationships. Then you're ready to make the most of the new moon on Sunday in the sign of Scorpio. And remember, this is the moon in Scorpio sitting exactly paired with the sun in Scorpio, but also beside them is the goddess of love and that mercurial messenger planet, Mercury. So it's a four-part harmony, but it has a challenge from the god of lightning, Uranus, who has been in that green thumb sign of Taurus Earth since this past March 2019. And when the god of lightning is 180 degrees opposite this new moon, all that Scorpio, it's definitely a wake-up call, as Uranus always is, but in particular, because the god of lightning is in Taurus, it is a call to change how we're doing things in regard to humanitarian principles, in regard to how we are treating other people in the world, through our business practices, through the economic practices, because the god of lightning now wants us to come up with practical and unique and original solutions to help us, and I maybe should say tongue-in-cheek when I do that, but to help us. The god of lightning always brings some form of freedom from limitation. The wake-up call is change, but the lightning is, of course, never where you expect it or when you expect it, and therefore we have to be very light on our feet when we are feeling that a restriction we've placed on ourselves has been hit by sudden change, or, we also say things like someone pushed our buttons. And the idea is you're going to open the door to a now unlocked prison that you have made in your belief systems, in your mind, in the area of being attached to material things, to material objects, in such a way that they limit you. Think below the surface, like Scorpio does. So, for example, the point is not money, right? It's our attitude toward money. And synchronistically, my Sun magazine for the month of November has this fun quote. The whole magazine this time devoted to economic issues and money in particular. This quote from David Sedaris really sums up this conflictual sets of beliefs we tend to carry, some from the ego, the other from our integrity and our spirit. He said, "Across town, over in the East Village, the graffiti was calling for the rich to be eaten, imprisoned, or taxed out of existence. Though it sometimes seemed like a nice idea, I secretly hoped the revolution would not take place during my lifetime. I didn't want the rich to go away until I could at least briefly join their ranks." And since humor always breaks the tension that seems constantly to surround the economy, around issues of have and have-nots and money, this quote from Joan Rivers. "People say that money is not the key to happiness, but I always figured if you have enough money, you can have a key made." It is true that what's confronting us from Saturn and Capricorn is the feeling and the tremendous drive for success, having very strong ambitions. Right now, that energy is very strong, resonating with most all of us. At the same time, side by side, Pluto gives us this power surge, calling us to be agents of transformation in our own personal lives, and therefore that resonating out into the world. Now, like any aspect or any belief, there are two ways to look at it. There is one way, the ego's way, which seems to dominate the world. And there's also the way of integrity and fairness and truth, which is the way of spirit. So, like anything, if the ego gets in charge of these very powerful energies, then we can look for chaos, right? Centered around sort of a ruthless drive for power. And under the ego's tutelage, this is rarely out in the open, but most frequently it's in plans made behind the scenes or in secret, using tools of intrigue, etc. For me personally, my part as an agent of change, and I think you too are doing the same thing, is I want to be as truthful as I possibly can, and to really change my beliefs that justify lying. Those little white lies that we feel are necessary, or lying in order to protect the person from the so-called truth. So let's give up those hoax and pretensions. Do it voluntarily, or I can promise you, between whistleblower Jupiter and Mercury in his prolonged 9-week stay in Scorpio, what is hidden is going to be revealed, and not perhaps in a very convenient or polite way. We are full on in the shift away from abuse of power and to the use of our power with integrity and fairness. And this is building as we go towards January. So let me mention on the road ahead another trigger point that we're going to come to is December 25th, when we will have a solar eclipse, a new moon that is, in the sign of Capricorn. This will be the remarkable new beginning that sets the tone as we move into the January peak. And it will be that lunar cycle that begins with the Capricorn new moon, December 25th, that takes us into, that is the usher, into the January 12th culmination. When we see that supercritical mass has created a self-sustaining chain reaction that we will call the age of avatars. So together, can we set an intention on this Scorpio new moon to choose to see only the light in someone else? To deliberately and consciously choose vision, which is of the spirit, rather than perception, which is of the body's eyes. And let's take as our grounding rod the determination to forgive everyone. And after that, there's nothing left to say. So thanks so much for listening, and I'll be back next week. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch with me for a personal reading, just email me, Judith at judithroyal.com. Bye for now.